Hello and welcome to
Hey.
the War Room 3.1.11, I believe is what we're on. I got very confused trying to write that in several times, there's too many ones. So this time we're going to be talking about some really cool stuff. We'll start as always with a recap of the news, but before that I will introduce my glorious guests. We have someone who hasn't been on the War Room for a while.
No, I've been off on secret projects.
Secret projects?
Yeah.
Sounds very mysterious.
Very.
Well, who are you, for those of you who've forgotten who you are?
No one's forgotten who I am. Hello, I'm Will. I am a content designer, which means I design content, surprisingly enough. But that involves coming up with PM units, factions, units, commanders, that kind of stuff, and doing the work to, well, some of the work to get that into game.
Very cool. And actually there's some cool preview unit suggestions that we'll have at the start of the stream.
Yeah, I think I've seen some of these already.
And
yeah.
we have Paul.
Hello, nice to meet you. I am Paul, designer on Arena. I do various things from balance to matchmaking to helping out with content, general support.
General support,
morale
support.
Yeah, backbone of the team is Paul.
Thank you.
Okay, and who bleeds the front bone? Oh, that's not a sentence.
Mm.
So, should we move on to the community concepts that I just teased? So we did have someone in the community who was sharing some pictures that they drew of some premium units they thought up. And we'll start off with the Tier 7 Greek Aspis Companion. There we go. So I can see Paul sneaking out beneath the shield.
Oh, yeah. There we are. Okay.
So they're really cool. I'm a massive sucker for art from the community. I always like to show it off. So actually, if you guys are really interested in the pictures that we see, not you two, but if people watching are really interested, if you go find the post, it's one of the top of the week, I believe.
And it actually looks good.
Yeah, well, he's got spreadsheets with like all the details about how the units work, the abilities, the attributes.
Artist with the spreadsheets.
Well, there's a whole like historical paragraph.
Skeptical hippo face. Wild.
Well, we also have number 2, Athenian Swordsman. That's pretty cool. I really like seeing the like evolution of it.
Yeah,
think
it's
really
good.
cool.
Yeah, those layers.
Concepting, yes.
Oh, there we go. And finally,
Nice, and most of those are assets we actually have in games. So it's kind of, yeah, piecing them together out of what we've got, which is cool. Yeah.
well, if you like them, you'll like the Spartan Schierietti. Sounded a little Italian when I said it there. But there you go. This is some really cool community art. So if you guys are talented artists, like person we see here, oh my gosh, I completely forgot to write down their name. Oh no! The person we see here, whose name I will reveal at some point, then yeah, absolutely share your art and we'll give it a shout out. Begin with a B. It's like Barok or Baldock.
Balrog?
Maybe. Yeah. So, moving swiftly on. Oh, maybe Sasha could check that. Moving swiftly on, we'll talk about the Dev newsletter, which went out yesterday. So, Dev newsletter always goes out the day before the live stream because we do it in weekly cycles. So, for those of you who don't know, we do this live stream every other week, and then the week that we don't have a live stream, we're releasing a patch. So, there's always something for you to learn or something for you to play. I mean, that made it sound really educational when really it's just, some people trying to fumble their way through a
We're
stream.
doing a public service.
Well, one thing we did announce, which I'll educate people on, are colour packs. I know we'd announced it before, but we haven't ever shown footage of it. And number 4 would reveal that footage. There you go. So this was quite a zoomed-in version of a Frozen video.
There we go.
So these are some of the colours you can see, and I was just flicking between them. So that's obviously their standard skin, and then a couple of them there. There's quite a few skins, I think, that we're going to be launching with when we launch this. But we'll have more on that soon.
I think the black and red is going to be popular.
I really like the black and red. And one thing that is cool is, and I think we can say, or I'm going to say, is that by the looks of it, if you're buying a colour pack not just for a unit.
No, you'll be able to use it on all units who have access to that colour pack.
Yep. Yeah. Which is something that people really wanted.
I think there will be a special orange.
Will there be a special orange? Whoa!
No, we're not going to go there.
There is this very special orange. We also spoke a little bit about balance. There's no picture of that, but
yes,
we'll touch on that a bit more later because, oh boy, have we got a lot of balance to talk about. In fact, there are 27 different little videos in this stream, and
I wouldn't call them videos.
videos, pictures, and 10 of them are balance. And bear in mind, most of them are just memes. The balance is quite significant. So let's also talk about something else we teased, which is full of teasers apparently, scene selection. We showed a video of that a couple of patches ago, but what's really exciting is scene selection is actually coming out in the next patch. And we will show you that. We'll show you that just after we speak about rank mode, just following the flow of the developer newsletter, because we spoke about how there's been a lot of feedback about rank mode and how we've really been listening to it, and we really appreciate everything you've said, and actually we've already started thinking of ways that we can act on that feedback. Something we teased was that we started looking into the technological side of being able to pick your units, like kind of during deployment or after loading, and that's something that's going to be a pretty thorough investigation, I imagine. But I believe there was some other feedback as well from Ranked.
Yes.
Segue to Paul.
Oh, right. I thought you were still doing the high-level presentation. Ranked mode, a lot of analysis has gone down after the weekend, and we've seen a lot of your feedback. Most of it was with regards to matchmaking and the clear limitations that matchmaking is bringing when it comes to ranked mode. A lot of you guys have given us feedback regarding being able to choose in some sort of a manner the units that you deploy after the matchmaking part. So you queue up, you get selected, you get thrown into or close to almost a battle, and being able to select the units right before landing into battle is something that we will be looking forward into the future. So imagine some sort of drafting, blind picking option as you get right before the battle. So this is just a kind of a high level description. We don't want to go too deep into defining what it is at the moment, but we definitely have taken your feedback on board, and we're already thinking, and we have in the plans something with regards to that. So yeah, more to expand on that. So for example, other smaller short-term fixes and improvements to matchmaking, which we will be doing, for example, is limitation of unit types in a party. So we've seen a lot of too many. We've received as well a lot of feedback from you saying that we have maybe too many elephants in one party, and we're definitely looking to fix that. Yeah, those are some of the things that we'll definitely be tackling in the future. And I was hoping that maybe we have some direct questions regarding it.
We'll be able to talk about rank later. There's I believe some community stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And always the end of our stream will be a bit of a Q&A.
Okay.
But we've got a lot to bustle through before then. So for now, if we move on, and we can come back to that,
Yep.
we will talk about the scene selection, and we'll move on to patch 3.1.11. So we have a video that I took that I edited very nicely.
Did you do that
before
at
we roll the
3:30
video?
today?
I did do this today. Before we roll the video, I'll explain a little bit what scene selection is, because some people might be confused by that. The bit where your commander and your troops are standing, where you're picking them all and you've got access to the tech trees, that's kind of by us seen as, I think we call it the front end, right? Some
Yes.
people call it the scenes, some people the front end. But what we've always wanted to do is to let you change that and customize it. So we finally got that. You can now change your front end. I think there are, I'm going to throw a number out there and say 8 to choose from
Sounds
at the
about
start.
right, yeah.
Well, we'll see, because I'm going to flick through them all.
All of them.
All of them. I leave no stone unturned. So we'll show you all of those, and I believe, I don't know if the pricings are fully locked in yet. I think they're all purchasable by gold, but there are some that if you have a premium account, while you have a premium account, you'll have access to them for free. And there will obviously always be one free front end, right? You'll never just be standing there in a void. But what we're going to be able to do is kind of cycle.
Unless you want that, and then you can
Purgatory.
Yeah, I mean,
That would be a funny request to have someone request like all the front end.
If you
back
really
end.
someone
want to
requested the old
Really?
alpha front end. Yeah.
Really?
Well, if you really want to optimize your load times, and therefore you have no front end at all.
There you go. So don't use any front end, which isn't an option. But what we've got is we've got a bunch of front ends. Most of them are based on existing battlefields and like cool places that you guys really seem to like. and I think that's all I need to say. Apart from the free one, we'll still do what we're currently doing, which is rotating it out when there's new stuff, and we've got a new one to show. So let's roll the videotape. So look, he's in his normal front end. I picked Germanicus. I thought this would be a little story of like Germanicus's travels around the world. And here's the scene selector, R8, bang on.
Nice.
So you can see them all here. Those are the ones that will be available for a premium account. And
Yes,
I've jumped
they're all-
straight into Oasis.
Yeah.
This looks amazing.
Some excellent editing. So this is the one that we teased the community with. We said, hey, you might be able to go here soon.
Yeah, this
Um,
looks awesome.
Where else are we going to be able to go?
I'm really excited about this, by the way. This is something that I personally have been looking for a long time, because I think this really like provides flavor and
Yeah.
Yeah, you spend a lot of time in the front end, and it's kind
Yeah.
of, yeah.
So actually, this is the first time I'd seen a lot of them. And the next one is Barbarian Town. And I actually fell in love with this. I was recording the video. It's the first time I'd seen it. And that's just showing off the preview. But I fell in love with it when I clicked on it. And I spent a little bit longer on it. Because that is such a lovely front end.
Yeah.
There's a lot of detail there.
And in fact, I kind of forgot I was recording for a second. And you're going to see me click on the units and be like, oh, what's behind there? Did I edit that out? No, I didn't. I was like, oh, wow, that's a really cool little house. And then I remember I'm recording. And then we've got the Hot Gates, which is a really cool one for Leonidas. But obviously Germanicus is still travelling around the world in his field commander outfit.
the Temple of Hako, the famous Temple of Hako, named so by our player community.
I see someone's talking about clans in the chat. We have a question from clans in the community section at the end, so we will
Okay.
be talking about clans.
Yeah,
Cheeseburg?
it looks.
That mines in the background is one of the shots we used as like the loading screen to Cheeseburg, because it's such a cool location.
Yeah, look at that.
Kudos to our team for doing this. It's really cool.
I think we have, and now the next two I think are going to be very familiar with people who've, if you've been playing Arena for a while, you recognise the next couple. This was our Carthage one, right?
Yes, which no one noticed.
No.
The gigantic elephant tusks in the background for
No.
a long, long time.
I think there were a couple of people who were like, oh, there's a lot more elephant theming in this one, but no one was like, hey, maybe they're about to release Carthage. And finally we have, this was our Alpha one, this came with Boudica.
This is the
The
good
first
old
one.
days. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we just bought this one when I first started on the team.
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, I think this was, that front end scene was one of the first patch notes I wrote.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
And now Germanicus is back. He's travelled around the world. So those are ones you're going to be able to switch between. So yeah, that was a little nostalgic trip at the
Yeah,
end, wasn't it?
we'll keep putting these out.
Yeah.
And yeah, who knows? Maybe there'll be some secrets hidden in them.
Well, there's one in the Tutorberg one. I saw a really cool deer. I won't spoil where, but it's a really. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's a
I
really
don't
cool
know. I
little
haven't seen that
deer.
one.
Let's move on.
Okay, we got to move on because if it gets to Tutorberg, people are going to look for the deer and spoil it. So next we're going to talk about another thing that has been. Josh is gorgeous. Someone just said in the chat. I'll take that.
I mean, you don't say when they say we're gorgeous.
No, someone did say hi, Will, and someone else
Oh.
said hi, Paul.
Hello.
Mum has Twitch.
She actually does. So, thanks for highlighting that one. Anyway, we've also added something else that's been long requested, which is a report button. So let's roll the little picture I took of that. So what it is there is if you right-click on someone, and I believe this works on the leaderboard bits, not leaderboard bits, the in-game when you press tab.
It would make sense.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
The leader, I think
Yeah.
the panel where you see all players.
Yes,
The
that
score
one.
panel. Yeah.
Score panel.
Yeah.
And you can right click on someone and you can see that this new thing at the bottom, which is report them. Don't report your friend, which is what I was about to do just for this picture. But you can see there's 3 categories, so communication abuse, unsporting conduct, and suspected bot. And this will help us to, kind of work out which players are
Yes.
being toxic, where there's bots. And, this is something that we know you've wanted for a while because there are frustrations, right? When someone's being angry at you and all. You can go to Wargaming Support at the moment, but you need screenshots, that kind of stuff. This is just a direct way to flag to us is, hey, this guy's doing something that you should look at.
Yeah. So again, we've listened to your feedback, and the idea with this one is to statistically analyze which players receive a certain or go over a certain amount of a certain threshold of reports in a certain category, and then really look deeper into like how do we go about actioning those players.
Well, someone just said, I'm going to report myself for being a bad player. What he doesn't know is, I don't know if it was a bug that was fixed, or if it's still in, or if it wasn't even a bug, but you can report yourself, I'm pretty sure.
Well,
So if you think you have been bad, if you think you've been toxic, report
I
yourself.
hope that's been fixed.
I don't know. I think it's quite funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you have been naughty, report yourself.
Probably shouldn't have said that up. Yeah.
It's
Fine.
So
Also, definitely report Josh if you see him, because I know he hacks.
Josh is awesome, don't that.
well, there we have the two sides, don't we? We have the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other.
Yeah,
Let's
report
see what they
Josh.
do. I bet it's reporting me.
Yeah.
So I think we've kind of spoken about a lot of the other stuff in the patch, but the meat of this patch is there is a lot of kind of high tier balancing stuff that also affects a lot of the other tiers. So I think we should dive straight into that if you want to introduce it, Paul.
Yeah, so in this patch particularly, we looked forward to tackle high tier balancing issues. So we've gone and taken all your feedback on board, looked at metrics, and from our extensive play in high tiers as much as possible, we've decided to go very deep and be very strong with the balance that we're doing here. The intention is first to improve balance in high tiers as much as possible. The second objective of this is to prepare as much as possible for the ability selection, tier 10 ability selection that should be coming in soon after this. With that in mind, something very new that we have done with this balance implementation is we've introduced as much as we could Praetorian feedback at a deeper level than we've ever done before. So we started with including their input into our balanced decision making, and then even after we have come up with the first draft of our balance results, we have reviewed them or we have passed them on to the Praetorians yet again to help us again decide or improve the quality of this change as much as possible. With this in mind, a lot of commanders have been touched, particularly the ones that both the players and our metrics have identified as very performing. Some of them have been nerfed down, and some have been buffed up, as for example Leonidas, Scipio, if I recall correctly. And then we've done a lot of other. So we've done commanders, we've done on base unit levels, we've done a very particular bug fix which will have a huge impact on ranged capacity. We've done equipment, and I think maybe you wish to go deeper into each one.
Should we jump into Caesar?
Also, one thing to flag up right at the start here is that if we get to the end of this and you're like, oh my god, why isn't this particular thing fixed? That's not because we don't think it needs to be fixed. There's a lot going on in this patch, and there's only so much capacity that we have to test all that and make sure it's safe. And also, some of these changes, we're not 100% sure what impact they're going to have on the meta and on the game. So we kind of want to make sure that they're all bedded in before we try any other stuff. And some particular things require a bit more long-term thinking as well. So yeah, don't worry, this is not us saying we've fixed the game. This is, a first set of steps in the right direction.
Okay, so should we jump into Caesar?
Yeah, let's do it.
Caesar, the opportunity, and go to number 7. There you go. You might want to get rid of us for this bit at least.
Bye. So Caesar was a very, very strong performer at high tiers. There's a couple of reasons for this. Firstly, there was the capacity of Vici when chained across 3 units to effectively shut down a large chunk of the enemy team for quite a substantial period of time. In fact, almost entirely if it was well managed. And given the importance of commander abilities, that was a little bit excessive. So we've boosted the cooldown on Vici, both the base and reduced the reduction you get by talents, with the aim of meaning that you can get there's much less potential for constant Vici uptime, so there'll be much more gaps in which other commanders can respond and get in with their own abilities. The other changes to Veni. Veni was giving a lot of stats and again was able to have pretty much constant uptime. And compared to some other buffs, for example Hasdrubal can get a similar level of stats and can have constant uptime, but only on 3 units, while Caesar could cycle it on a whole group of 6 or 7 people. And we found that was just promoting too much these strong blob defensive positions. So we've tweaked down those up the upper end of the Caesar stats a bit, so you will be less inclined to just sit on your local Caesar and win all your melee combats.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sure.
This is, I believe, this is the second time in a row that we touch on Vici. In a previous patch, we have reduced the total duration of Vici. That was again towards the direction of reducing the total uptime. It wasn't sufficient, particularly in high tiers where high skilled players would be able to properly line this up. So this is the second
And
touch on that.
also, for those of you who are wondering, because I've changed the format of this somewhat, and I should probably talk through it a little bit. On the left-hand column, so you'll see each kind of table is its own thing. On the left-hand side, you'll see the changes that are being made, and on the right-hand side, you'll see the results of those changes, so anything that's been affected. So you can see that specifically certain talents had changes made to them, but it is all of those talents only actually affected one thing, which is why you're only seeing one thing on the right-hand side. Whereas for Vini, you can see that those affected two different types of stats, and those are the differences to those stats. So you can take those numbers and you can directly compare them to what you've got in game. In fact, that's what I've done already. Above, you can see that number that's been got that line through it. That's the current number in game, and the number below in white is the number it's going to become. So shall we move on to Germanicus?
Yeah, let's do it.
Number 8. We can be back for this one. Let's bring us back. It's been a while since they've seen our face. Oh, no. There we go.
Great.
So let's talk about Germanicus.
Do you add to this or shall we?
Please go ahead.
So Germanicus has long been our most popular commander, and that's not just because he's a starting commander, I think, but also because of his sheer flexibility. He was in a position where he had one of the best missile block abilities in the game, one of the best charges in the game, and one of the best melee abilities in the game. And that trifecta was, I think, just a little bit too much. The charge in particular, Germanicus got 30% charge impact from a single kind of talent, where I think the most another commander got was 10%. So we've brought that down a bit. And that should, and this is not just about Germanicus really, this is also about giving other commanders a bit more space to breathe.
Yes.
So we're now in a position where a Boudica player who combines Ambush and Fury should be in a position to charge against a heavy infantry on Germanicus, and if not necessarily win, at least kind of have a neutral grey charge, as Jamie calls them. Vengeance is in a similar position where it was distorting the kind of balance of melee combat so much. Almost every other commander melee ability was kind of, we had to think about what does this stack up against Vengeance, and that was creating sort of a longer term design problem. It kind of limited our design space a bit. So we've reined that in a little bit. It doesn't seem like a huge amount, this percent, but what it will stop is basically there's a break point where Vengeance basically means you start one-hitting all of your opponents. And this should basically mean that you don't really hit that quite in the same way. So there will no longer be this spike around tier 8, I think, where Germanicus will start basically just like mincing his way through units. So he should be a little bit more under control. Still incredibly powerful. You definitely don't want to stay in combat with a Vengeance Germanicus, but you'll have a little bit more room to escape.
Yeah. I just want to add that, remember, these are high tier talents.
Yeah.
So again, the idea is to only touch as much as possible on the high tier balance.
Yeah.
Tell you what, Twitch chat is really interesting. It's big reactions, and people were talking about Scipio already. They want to see. I will confirm that Scipio is on our list of things we're going to get to.
Yes.
So you're going to have to wait for that. But before we go to Scipio, hashtag down with Germanicus, someone just said.
I don't believe it's a hashtag down with Germanicus. I think, again, as to reiterate, maybe be redundant to what Will just said. Yeah, again, he was clearly, the value of charge impact was just clearly too high, and we had to bring that more in line. He was the only one who would still stand out as able to countercharge cavalry, and that was a little bit was stretching a little bit some limits that we kind of are comfortable with. So yeah.
So shall we talk about Leonidas?
This is an interesting one, I think.
Yep.
And that would be number Is he looking? Number 10. Oh, number 9? It's hard to read on my sheet. Number 9. My numbers are off, sorry.
There we go,
It's
yeah.
almost like we're going consecutively.
Here we go.
So I think Leo was an example of a commander who was extremely potent at low tiers, but really, really tapered off at higher tiers. We saw that in our metrics, definitely.
Yes.
And there was definitely something our Praetorians picked up on. So these changes aren't extensive, but we're trying to push him in the direction where he can compete. He has a little bit more of a bump at high tier, so that's what the whole line changes are about. Previously, he only got 10%. He had a talent which gave him 10% melee defense, which actually doesn't feel great compared to some of the stat effects other commanders were getting. So we've boosted that up a bit. So he can actually tank. He fills his role of tank at higher tiers where there's so much more melee attack flying around. The other change, and I think this is an interesting change that I'm kind of curious to see how it will play out, is we removed the melee defense penalty from Fight in the Shade. I joked at the time that this is so he could actually fight in the shade. And I think there's two things going on here. Firstly, we want to distinguish Fight in the Shade from Raise Shields. Raise Shields reducing your melee capacity considerably. And we also wanted to give players an answer to the popular ranged box meta, where you can basically surround, put some javelins behind some infantry, often multi-ADs, and you can't even engage the multi-ADs because the javelin units will just throw over you and kill all your guys. What this allows Leo to do is actually engage that blob. He can't go into phalanx when he does it, so he's sacrificing something. But he can attack that multi-ADs, and he can still use shield bat, he can still use hold the line and benefit from the melee defense. And he won't be quite so vulnerable to the javelins just attacking over the top. So he should be good. He should be in a position to kind of go in and try and crack these defended archer boxes.
Before Paul, if Paul's going to jump in, producer, could we pause the video in the background because it's driving me nuts? I think the loop is the copied video is slightly off, and the loop is driving me absolutely crazy. Thank you. Is there anything you want to say, Paul?
No, I think we're fine. Remember that Hold the Line is an AoE ability, so 20% melee defense on AoE abilities, yeah, is solid in my opinion. We'll see how the Fight in the Shade plays out.
Yep.
Yeah, when it comes to high tier play and particularly high skill players, it's quite difficult to get it right. So, but we're looking forward to your feedback as always.
Shall we move on to Miltiades?
Yes.
People at the moment are saying, oh, hold on, someone just said, distinguishing Fight in the Shade from, oh, it's going too fast, from Raise Shield is a good idea. Will you make Raise Shield a common skill for more shielded units?
Thanks, Patch.
Okay. So, let's talk about Miltiades, as I just promised. Is there anything under us? Okay, then we're good.
No, looks like it's everything. Yeah, as I'm sure anyone who plays at high tier know, Miltiades has become the he wasn't spelled Miltiades wrong.
Oh man, I always spell it wrong.
Yeah, sorry.
God.
Has become one of the most popular commanders. Largely, I think we feel because of his maneuverability. At high tier play, speed is essential to be able to respond, intercept cavalry, etc., etc. And while at lower tiers, break ranks had some downsides. At higher tiers, the upsides became so huge, and the downsides were so easily countered by just dropping into phalanx if you're being charged, for example, that it was basically a no-brainer to just have it on as much as possible and just run around. Especially combined with a very short cooldown on infantry charge, which meant you were a speedy one. So this is pretty much a flat-out nerf to the movement speed, and this is a theme you'll start to see. Yeah. A theme you'll start to see across here is that we've tried to rein in some of the more extremely mobile commanders while also bringing up the ability of some of the slower commanders. And Miltiades, I think, is one of those candidates where, he was just, given the importance of mobility, it was too much given the limited downsides. So yeah.
Do you want to know what one of the worst typos you can make is when you're nerfing a commander?
What?
Miltia dies.
He won't die. He's still speedy.
It's very important to understand that this is in the context of high tier. So we're only touching upon that. This is, I think, the second time we touch his mobility factor because it was simply too high. So
And
yeah.
sorry, for those of you who are asking, oh, is this commander going to get? Some insight is this is actually in alphabetical order, apart from Kanani. So if Arminius hasn't come up now, he's not coming up yet. At least not this patch.
Yes, I believe this is the tier 9 talent, or tier 8. So it's the last speed talent has been replaced with turn speed. So if you're a low tier Mercedes player, you're not going to see any change. It's only if you're playing in the higher tiers that you'll really notice any difference. And you will get some turn speed as a replacement. So have fun.
So people have been talking a little bit about Scipio. They want to know what's happening with him.
Mm-hmm.
So shall we show them?
Yeah, let's do it.
And that would be whatever the number is after this.
Yeah, so Scipio's been a bit of a roller coaster ride. He was a very, very strong contender back in the days of closed beta for a while, and we made some changes that perhaps were overkill, given that eventually players realised that what you could just do is run away from him, and that left him in a bit of a lurch. And given the extremeness of there was a very extreme mobility penalty on Oath. You couldn't ameliorate it through talents at all. You were stuck at minus 80%. And given that Roman cavalry is pretty slow already, this was just too punishing. You could just often going into Oath was basically an excuse for the nearest spear players, even not very near spear players, to come running over to you and kill you before you could do anything. So we've reduced the movement speed penalty as the main thing, halved it in fact, and this will mean that you can probably try and get away a little bit more if you've made an open bad situation, but what it will mean more is that you'll be able to punish players who try and disengage from your Oath. If they try and get away from you, it won't be an easy prospect. You'll be able to stick them for at least a little bit longer, and that will mean that Scipio can kind of fill his role as a tank as a bit better. We've combined that with a change to a tier 10 talent on Warcry. Warcry had a minus 10% charge deflect talent on it, which was
questionable.
Yeah, situational. Let's put it. Like there were times where it would benefit you, but it was rare. So we switched that out for movement speed. The idea being that if you use it while in Oath and someone's trying to get away from you, you've narrowed even further that gap in speed and allows you to really again try and punish them a bit more for escaping. So yeah, hopefully this will mean that you'll have to be a bit wary about if you can't just run away from Scipio anymore. Hopefully he'll or if you do, you will be punished for it.
So there were a couple of questions about Scipio.
Mm-hmm.
There was, would you consider giving Scipio after 30 seconds the ability to toggle it off? Oath, sorry.
So the way our systems work, the only way that would work would be to reduce the cooldown of the ability to 30 seconds, which would probably be excessive. Yeah, if this doesn't work, we might look into a system that would allow us to do that without the cooldown change. But that sort of code change is something that we can only really do if there's a real need for it. So we're exploring other options.
Well, some people are just asking for a flat toggle on it instead of after some kind of limit.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important to remember that we still have some ongoing bugs with also perseverance, morale application and whatnot, and that plays a role into the overall power level of Scipio. In the future, we hope to be able to solve that bug, which is quite significant in terms of ramifications. So, yeah.
So, I saw some people talking about Scylla as well, and yes, we are going to be talking about Scylla.
Yes.
Let's Scylla it up.
Alphabetically, the next one. Here we
It
go.
is.
That's wrong, by the way.
Oh, what's wrong?
Welcome.
We haven't reduced this to melee attack to plus 40%.
I've got the patch notes here as well. My patch notes are my backups.
It's all right. We can just
anyway, so we can talk about it. So, while the details here aren't quite
Oh,
right,
no, you haven't.
the general
68% is
Yes.
what that is meant to read.
yeah, so while the details here are slightly off, the general gist is there. Basically, Scylla was in a similar place to Miltiades in that he was a very high-performing commander at high tiers. Very, very good with many unit types. We've seen a lot of Scylla Jabs, Scylla Cav, Scylla Infantry. And largely that was because the combination of Prescription and Whip basically meant you could have a huge advantage in melee attack over any enemy, which meant that you were pretty much guaranteed to be able to grind them down over time. So we've basically, and combined with the mobility offered by Whip, which was huge, so basically constant 30% movement speed is big, especially when the morale penalty can largely be accounted for in other ways. So we've kind of tried to rein in Whip a bit, so the melee attack total, when fully upgraded, will be down to plus 68% from 80%. We've also slightly reined in prescription, so it will max out at minus 52% rather than minus 60% melee attack.
I'm just waiting for people to get over the fact that I wrote 40% because there was an immediate what?
Yeah, it's very important to remember that these are just fine touches, and when it comes to particularly Sula, we went a little bit harder on him because of what's coming with tier 10 ability sorting, where you will have some new unit abilities which can be used in conjunction with these to really get very good in melee combat. So yeah, we're expecting after this patch, in the next one, 3.1.12, for him to get a power increase yet again when it comes to melee combat capacity.
So Scylla and his 68% melee attack, we will leave behind, and we'll move on to Vercingetorix the Gaul.
So this one was quite important to me because I really like Verci. I'm a barbarian infantry player most of the time, so I really do appreciate it when players are like, I don't like being shot all the time as barbarians. But we'll come back to that specifically in a bit. Vercingetorix has been for quite a long time ended up being quite a strong cavalry commander. This wasn't entirely expected or intentional. It was mostly a side effect of the way that the melee attack and melee damage stats on Defiance were interacting with the quite high melee attack and melee damage of cavalry. And we always envisioned him as an artillery commander? No, an infantry commander. He does bow fire, that's not quite the same
Radical
thing.
change there.
Whoa, I was like, where are we going?
And again, there's some mistakes here.
I'm checking now.
Yes. So what we've tried to do is shift his power away from Defiance, which really benefits cavalry, towards Iron Discipline, and shifted the stats around on that in such a way as to make it more beneficial to infantry. One thing that's worth noting about Iron Discipline is that since we added the Unbreakable effect to Determination, it was in some ways just a weaker version of Determination. So we wanted to give it its own spin to make it a little bit more interesting. So it will now have, and I believe this is right, plus 15% melee defense and plus 10 missile block on the base.
Yes.
So that will make your Germanicus infantry a little bit more tankier, and also give you a some answer to missiles. You'll have a little bit more. I think it probably works out at mid tiers to about 20% less missile damage taken from the front when you've got Iron Discipline active. So that will give you a little bit more survivability.
Yeah.
You'll be able to. We've also switched out some of the weirder Vercingetorix talents on Iron Discipline. He used to get impact damage on Iron Discipline, which I'm pretty sure no one ever really used because you didn't have enough charge impact to do damage anyway. So we've flipped around to charge deflect, which will make you a little bit more tankier, a little bit more able to stand up to enemy charges. We've also taken the missile damage off the tier 10, I think it's the tier 10 talent on Iron Discipline, and changed that to a bit more missile block. I think that's actually plus 10 missile block on that talent, not plus 20.
Yes, but it's added to
oh,
the...
I see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
that's the
see,
tier
that
10
makes
stats.
sense.
I didn't think it was that wrong.
No, you're right, that makes sense. Yeah, so now at max tier you'll get another plus 20 missile block for the duration of Iron Discipline, which is going to be super duper handy, especially if you're a Folks player or a Barbarian Infantry player. It will allow you to give that bit more survivability to cover that ground and get in there and burn everyone. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I really want to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
I'm super excited. I'm going to be playing a lot, so yeah.
So, yeah, just so, because it is a bit confusing. So, on the left, for the changes, those are the raw changes that are being made to the ability. And on the right, that is, if you have a tier 10 Vercingetorix with all of your abilities, those are all the differences.
I apologise, I accused you incorrectly though. That is all correct.
I will wipe all the sweat from my forehead that caused, and move on.
Yeah, more melee-centric Vercingetorix. This will be very interesting to see. And Defiance has been brought down, so yeah.
So we only have one commander left before we move on to units, and that is Kanani, who is broken our alphabetical order. There we go.
Yeah, so Kanane. Barrage had long been a sticking point, I think, with the community. This is largely because of the way that reload speed reduction works when it stacks on other reload speed reduction. It scales exponentially. So it gets to a point where 1% extra reload speed basically doubles your damage output, and it gets a little bit ridiculous. So there are some changes we'll talk about specifically with that on the next slide, but specifically to Barrage, one thing we noticed was that the tier 8 and 10 talents, which reduced your armor-piercing missile damage penalty when barraging, were incredibly high value. The first set of 5 points of talents, effectively, given that a lot of the time you'd only be doing AP damage to infantry units, effectively increased your damage output in Barrage by 50%.
Oh, yeah. One other thing
Yeah.
is the turn speed is the wrong way round.
Okay, yes, that's super
Oh,
important.
that
We'll
was
talk
the wrong
about
way
that
round.
later. Just keep
Um,
on track. It's fine.
Yeah, so you'll no longer see these huge spikes at tier 8 and tier 10 in Kanane's damage, and it will make her barrage to still be pretty effective when you're shooting at other squishy units like other archers, but you'll be much less likely to be able to like nuke an infantry unit, especially given the units are coming through. The other issue is Kanane pikes. None of us have been happy with the way pikes move. We haven't been for quite a long time. There's some longer term thinking we're doing about it, but in the short term, rapid advance was enabling behaviour that we just didn't want to see. So the first step to that is actually reducing the flat turn speed, not increasing, reducing the turn speed from rapid advance. The base turn speed has been reduced, and the turn speeds on the talents have been reduced, so are now maxed out at 20% rather than 30%. This will feed in some other changes, which I think we're going to jump onto now.
Yep, so we'll go straight to pikes.
Yes, so turn speed is another one of the things that scales really, really weirdly. So if you received a minus 95% speed penalty from pike phalanx, and then you got a 2% speed increase from your greaves, you actually ended up increasing your turn speed in phalanx by almost 50%, because you were going from 5% or 100 to 7% 100, so from 5 to 7. So this just produced some really weird behaviour where your base pikes would be quite slow and gross and quite difficult to turn around. You get one piece of equipment and suddenly you'd be like, yeah, this is good, and then you pop rapid advance and suddenly you'd be like, whoa, what's going on here? I'm taking off into the air. So what we've tried to do is really like squish that down. So
Normalize.
Yeah, normalize. So there's no longer these huge spikes in turn speed. So we've reduced the base speed of pikes turning by around 18%. It varies slightly depending on the unit. This won't really be massively noticeable outside of phalanx, I don't think.
No.
And it will also not actually be massively noticeable in phalanx. It's mostly there to enable some of the other changes we're making. So no longer any turn speed on pike greaves. It was simply too high value. Even 1% was a 20% increase in your turn speed, which was kind of nuts. But we have decreased the base penalty on pike phalanx turn speed from 95 to 90%. The end result from this is effectively that if you are playing an upgraded pike unit without rapid advance, you won't really notice much of a difference. What you will happen is that when you pop rapid advance, the difference will be much smaller. So a Leo pike player, it used to be that a Kanane pike with rapid advance could do a full 360 spin 7 times faster than a Leonidas player in pike.
Blimey.
These changes should reduce that down to 3 times faster. So there should be much less of an extreme difference between the two. And yeah, hopefully it's not. There are still issues with pikes that we want to fix.
Yes.
But those will take more time, and this is a first step in the right direction.
So, should we move on to infantry?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So I've combined sword and spear infantry here together. And don't worry about that big list on the left. That's just a list of the infantry that are going to be affected by the change.
Okay, so this is a kind of mishmash of various things that's
Yes.
going on. Okay. So one thing that, and this was something that turns to be reduced. No, that's wrong again.
It's
So
increased.
increased.
Oh, yep.
So coming
Turn
back
speed
to
increased by roughly 50%.
coming back to the
Do
idea
you want to put a
of
little increased over there, producer? He doesn't.
coming back to the idea of normalizing turn speeds and reducing extremes, top end extremes which were too high, and then bringing the lower ends, which were a little bit slow, back up. We have increased the turn speed on units that we consider very, very slow by 50% up, and you will see if you look at them, especially if you have a lot of experience with them, you will know that these units, generally speaking, were very slow to turn, and this will all hopefully, especially when it comes to the meta and to the degenerate or something that has been indicated as a degenerate tactic where you have spears and pikes boxing around archers. All of this is supposed to fit together and help counter that a little bit. So yeah, with that in mind, I think we need to go forward, which is very interesting, into equipment changes and consumable changes.
Yeah. Although yes, the Imperial Velties are neither sword nor spear infantry. I believe they are
Yeah,
javelin.
I had to,
Yeah.
but there were no others. There, well, there was a ranged category.
Yes. This was simply this was simply a response to the very valid point that a lot of people had. The javelins were a little bit too resistant to damage, and we found this was particularly extreme on the tier 10 Imperial Velties, who were getting a lot of armor from their shield upgrade and substantial amounts of armor from other bits and pieces, which just made them incredibly tanky.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've brought that back. The consumable change is an interesting one. So this is another ranged unit, effectively.
Well, I was going to call it people on feet because that's what all of these are.
Well, you could have just said infantry.
I did call it infantry, but then I scanned it and I saw there's nothing ranged there.
Sacrifice Island was a consumable available to barbarian range units, and it was originally fulfilled the role of basically making up for the fact they didn't have a ranged commander. So they got a quite powerful consumable, which gave them a little bit of edge over Greeks. It was now they do have a ranged commander, and for various other reasons. Basically just due to the fact that their mobility is proving to be incredibly powerful at high tiers, we decided to basically just reduce the damage bonus on this consumable to bring it in line with the Greek equivalent, which is, I think, Hero of Athens. So now they'll both give you 7% missile damage rather than 12% missile damage. So you will see, yeah, basically most barbarian players are probably taking this, so this is effectively a 4 or 5%, about 4% reduction to the damage output of barbarian archers.
But it's going to be way more when we splash over the aspect of the bug fixing aspect,
yes.
and we will talk about that at the end. Try to, for now, just keep in mind all of this, because at the end we'll try to pull it together and put the various pieces of the puzzle together to make a little bit more sense, because these taken individually seem very ad hoc, but there is hopefully a higher sense to this.
And I believe we have one final balance slide. 2. Okay.
Sorry, are we taking up all your time?
No, but I think that should only be one. Yeah, okay. Let's do cavalry. I don't remember making this.
Really?
Should say increased as well?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's probably why I don't remember it.
Producer is applauding. We have you in special effects. That's
Oh
awesome.
boy.
Yeah, maybe
Really good.
next time let us read this first.
Turn speed increased
Yes.
by roughly 50%.
This is the same logic that Paul flagged up about the heavy infantry. They were simply the gap between speedy light cavalry and the chunkier, more armoured boys in terms of mobility was simply too high. Arminius was just running circles around the Scipios,
Heavy
etc. Yeah. So we've basically ramped up their turn speed a bit to make it a little less frustrating and sluggish for the heavier cavalry players. The equipment changes. So due to the way that we calculate equipment bonuses and the fact that high tier cavalry have very high missile block, some shields basically could half, or in some cases eliminate entirely, the damage you were taking from the front from missiles. It's particularly notable on the Legatus and the 2 shields they had. So because again it turns out these exponentially scaling stats, missile block scales exponentially. The more you have, the better it is for you. So we've basically across the board reduced the missile block you get from shields on tier 10 cavalry. So yeah, you won't suddenly be able to get 1 shield upgrade and be able to tank a javelin barrage. We've also, again, in line with, what do you want to do with this one?
again, when it comes to the speed deltas, we noticed that some cavalry in Woods was just simply the difference between an Arminius with his cavalry and a Scipio with his cavalry was just too great, and especially when it comes to forest, it felt too extreme. So yeah, I also want to go a little bit back and underline that what you see right now with the equipment changes, these are the multipliers that we use really in game. When you go and load up and mouse over the various shields, what you will actually see is the absolute converted number that these multipliers result. So don't be like thrown off by what we're showing you here are the multipliers that we basically put in the database, which converts to absolute numbers in game. That's all I wanted to.
So I believe it was 20 originally on Legatus Shield, now 10. So
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the chance to redeem it with 0 typos, you realise. Okay, archers?
Yeah, this looks...
It's looking good!
This looks right.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that all looks accurate. Well done.
Only 4 wrong out of 12?
Only
Let's
4
focus on the
critical points.
positive.
Only
Yes.
one third.
you didn't have much time to do this today.
I didn't.
So, so we appreciate it. So the
Famous bug, yeah.
this bug. Big thanks to, I have no idea how to pronounce it, QVPVI,
Yeah?
who's a community member who
Is
flagged
that
this
Quo?
up to us. And yeah, basically it turned out that there was one stray line of code which meant that every missile damage increasing effect, so that was your sacrifice animals, it was your new bow, applied its percentage bonus both to the missile damage and the armor-piercing missile damage, except it didn't tell the UI this, so the UI would not say, oh, you got more AP damage from this. You just magically got more AP damage, which is why it's gone undetected for so long. And this meant that in some extreme circumstances, for example, a javelin unit, which has very high AP and lots of missile damage increasing stuff, could potentially be doing like 30% more AP damage than the UI said they should be, which was obviously not great. And it goes a long way to explaining why javelins have felt so powerful in recent times, and also barbarian archers is another great example.
Yes.
Where barbarian archers would get sacrifice animals, which increases their damage by 12%, and also their AP damage by 12%. So they were getting a double bonus. And yeah, so this bug fix will have a pretty large impact on across the board missile damage.
5 to 20% specifically. So we have done some rough calculation, and it's about 5 to 20% damage reduction across the board, depending on the various range unit. As Will just pointed out, for example, Ambiorix with the tier 10 Archers of Ulur, which also have aim. Aim gives you 50% missile damage increase. That would, because of this bug, also apply to AP, and then at the same time you had crippling shot, which fully talented up would give you another 4%. So he will get. We had a clip from a player pointing out that Ambiorix with tier 10 Archers is kind of a little bit too strong. Yeah, just this bug fix should resolve, because at least at the theoretical level the numbers were there.
Yeah. And so, also, if you're wondering why we haven't sorted out issue X with archers or issue Y with javelins, this bug is a big part of it, because it's gonna have a big impact across the board. So we kind of wanted to minimize the other changes we made to archers and other ranged units at this point, just because we want to see how it plays out. There were a couple of changes we have made to tier 10 equipment. Because we found out that it was the equipment on these units which was giving them a lot of their power. For example, the Archers of Ulur, they had a bow which was giving them plus 20% melee damage on a piece of equipment, which is huge, and especially combined with the bug. We found out that 90% of players were picking the Yew of Ulur over Manfella, which really gets to show that something was off there. So we've basically taken the reload penalty off Manfella, so it's a bit more attractive, and slightly reduced the damage bonus on the Yew of Ulur, which is overall a reduction in the damage output of the Archers of Ulur, a very powerful unit. but it will also mean you get a little bit more choice in your equipment. Similarly, Cretan archers, the Epiclinic bow. I mentioned before the way that reload speed scales incredibly well. So while this only looks like a very small change of 3%, that 3% when combined with barrage was equivalent to like another 3 or 4 volleys in your barrage. So it was simply too good an option to take if you're a barrage focused Knight player. So this should make it less more of an obvious choice.
Someone was asking how this would affect slingers.
It almost slingers are almost not affected by it at all because slingers have such low AP damage that you needed to get about 20% for extra missile damage for this to even show up, and even then you get like 1 extra AP damage. So slingers, effectively, we can consider it's almost a buff for slingers, right? Because
you're toning down the other range units around them, so they will have more room to breathe.
Yeah.
Okay.
It will have the greatest impact on those range units which have the most AP damage. So javelins are going to see the biggest impact, we think.
Unfortunately, we're actually running out of time. We've got 2 minutes left.
Oh shit.
And we had another 7 things to go through, which were all just kind of community pictures. So that's kind of it for 3.11. There were a couple of bug fixes.
Let's keep going.
That was... Well, I can say what the bug fixes were. There was left-clicking unleashed war dog entities out of vision no longer selects the unit. So you used to be able to kind of work out where your war dogs were. And the heavy artillery consumable flaming siege bolts tooltip description and effect now match each other.
Oh yeah, that was a fun one to fix. Yeah, appreciate that.
And other bugs as well. So actually, we launched the bug bounty system a while back, and we started with the UI not loading one, which I thought would be a nice easy bug. Turned out really difficult to fix, massive scope, and unfortunately no one was able to find the reproduction. But we yesterday released another one, which was artillery. So you guys might have seen, but there was an artillery animation glitch that was causing it to fire. And in less than 24 hours, you guys, the community, have managed to find the repo steps for that. So we've sent that on to QA, and hopefully that will be fixed soon. Well, depending on what the fix is.
Yeah, right. Have we got time for any questions?
Do we have time for any questions? We can take a couple of questions.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot that's come out here, and I guess people want to know.
I've tried to raise some of the more.
We should discuss. I agree with you. We should discuss as much as possible.
But actually, most people are just saying really great patch and hashtag Josh stop typos, and it looks like people are pretty happy about it. So if you guys have any questions, ask them now. They'll probably hear that in 20 seconds. Someone said question Sulla Ray's shield.
Oh yes.
Yeah, you may see that happening, but we will obviously appreciate that has balanced consequences, and we will not be doing it without changes. Let's say. If you've got more questions, I'll probably jump on the Discord after this in about 20 minutes while I'm on my train home. So if you've got any questions, please ask them there.
I think that's pretty much it. I think people are pretty satisfied with that.
Cool.
Well, that was a lot of... Why did you pick that one? This was some of the community stuff we had. I didn't realise I was photoshopped onto it.
Yeah.
I think that was by Lord Marula. Are there any others you saw that piqued your interest?
Piked.
Oh, it's got pikes in my head. Piqued your interest.
Peaked.
I think that's going to have to be it for this time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was a pretty funny one.
I've become a meme.
Oh, meme with hands.
Yes.
Yeah, this was really good.
I hope you appreciate these changes. I think they're a good step in the right direction. But like I said, not the end of it. Please continue to give us feedback.
Yep.
And yeah, we want to keep improving things.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
See ya.
Oh my.